Welcome to the OK Let's Learn podcast. This is a podcast for both kids and adults where we dive into books, stories, people, and tons of different topics. And today, let's learn about a sty. Yes, you're in two camps. Either you don't know about styes, you've never had one, or you're, oh yeah, I had one of those, and oh boy, this was painful. Friends, a sty is a small, sometimes painful red bump that develops on your eyelid. Sometimes in front of your eyelid, sometimes behind, but bottom line, it's on the edge of the eyelid. It can resemble a pimple or a boil, but it's caused by a bacterial infection from the oil gland. The medical term is a hordeolum, but no one calls it that. It's called a sty, and originally that comes from Old English. It was a riser on an eye, so they used to say sty on an eye, right? So it just too much, I guess, apparently over the years, and the common people just got rid of the eye and it became a sty. So what's the infection? It's Staphylococcus. Yeah, that bad germ we all know. You got a staph infection, and sure enough, most of the styes that appear on our eye, and yeah, I'm going to rhyme, are staph infections. So let's back up a second. I mentioned bacterial infection, and that's what the sty is caused by. Well, right there, as our eyelash comes out of our skin, there's a tiny opening, right? And that's what we call a hair follicle. Right there, underneath, beside that open entryway, think of it as like this little tunnel, and it's just under the skin, and here it is that sits this small oil gland. The oil gland empties into this hair follicle, and boy, is this gland important. Without this oil being secreted through our eyelashes, our tears would evaporate, which would be no good. We would have dry eyes. We would have eyes that are exposed. I mean, it just acts, as you can imagine, oil is a lubricant, which makes everything smooth and working properly in our eyes, from our blinking to protecting us when we sleep. And it really just creates this nice thin layer that just keeps out all the dust and irritants, everything that's out there that can trouble our eyes. So let's get back to this bacterial infection. That's this invader into this little tunnel right by our eyelash. Well, it happens when a tiny organism, right, gets into this area and it doesn't belong, it starts causing trouble. Well, our body is great at fighting off germs, fighting off infections. And what do? We send the defenses out, what we call our immune system. And it's primarily these good warriors called the white blood cells. You can call them like our defense team, right? So this fight that's going on, it causes the redness, it causes the swelling, the pain. And yes, with our sty, ultimately, like a pimple, sometimes there can be this pus at the tippy top of this sty. It's like yellowish, whitish color. But one thing, I'll just say this up front, I'm not a doctor, but everything that I've done to research styes, the last thing you want to be doing that some of you may do with pimples somewhere else on your body is pop them. You would never want to pop a sty right there, because it just can create even more havoc. But the bacteria, this is the invader. This is the germ. Now, it's important to realize that styes almost always are bacterial infection, bacteria germs. Now, bacteria can either be good and bad. The good ones are found a lot in our stomach, but they're on our skin, they're in our mouth and nose, they're on surfaces we touch, out in the environment, dirt, we know this, right? Even dirty water. But here's the thing. Once they invade our body, they get into places where they shouldn't be. And here is where our story starts. This little tiny microorganism, this germ, this bacteria gets into the hair follicle right where that oil gland is, and it starts causing problems. But here's the most important thing to realize. Yes, the bacteria can get in there because we put dirty fingers in our eyes. We're always rubbing our eyes, or we're just doing something that can just allow this bacteria just to flood into our eyes. And, in my case, I'm just thinking, all I've been doing for the last 2 months is raking leaves, getting down on my hands and knees, throwing the leaves in the bags. I mean, again, you never know. Life brings us some crazy things, but the release of the oil from these tiny glands can get backed up. It's like a traffic jam. Think of it as syrup going through a syrup bottle, and all of a sudden now the oil's getting too thick. It can't get through, and on top of that, you've got dust or flakes of skin that are blocking the opening, and yeah, here it is. You got an opportunity for the bacteria to get into that hair follicle, right? The oil can't escape. Just think of it, right? It backs up, and it's now got this warm, cozy place for the bacteria just to hang out, right? You're sitting there, you got this traffic jam, and the oil sets the stage, like I said, for the bacteria to get in there, multiply, and here comes the infection, which we see as the sty. So what to do when you have a sty? Sometimes they're not painful, sometimes they are, but the bottom line is you want to get rid of them. And the go-to is warm compresses. Whether it's a clean cloth soaked in warm water, put it directly over the sty, hold it there for 5 to 10 minutes, up to 3-4 times a day. This melts that thick oil that's in that clogged gland, and it's like softening up that syrup in the bottle, and it helps the sty drain naturally, letting the pus escape. Ultimately, you got to watch it, obviously, and in my case, certain days it was like pins stabbing my eye, very, very painful. Obviously, right from the beginning, you need to see a doctor, confer with the doctor. That's common sense. And contagious. Is it contagious? You see people with pink eyes, infected eyes, it's like, whoa, right? No, it's bacteria. That's your bacteria. And for the most part, definitely not contagious. Unless, you can never say nothing is always not contagious. But, as long as you're not touching the sty and then touching someone else's eye, or you're using the same towel or pillowcase. So you see someone, you're talking to them, they have a sty. No, you don't have to run away. So as we wrap up our podcast on these little tiny red spots on your eyelids, the sty, let's talk about the top 10 most interesting facts about styes and everything around them in our eyelids and eyes. Number 10, the blinking that occurs is unbelievable. Up to 20 times a minute, which is basically blinking 30,000 times per day. Number 9, they're the fastest muscles in our body. We can blink in just 1/10 of a second. Number 8, our eyelids are like built-in windshield wipers. They're keeping out everything, dust, dirt, and those nasty germs. Number 7, these oil glands, they're like tiny oil factories. They keep our tears from evaporating too fast, and they're basically just keeping our eyes nice and comfortable where we don't even notice them. Number 6, speaking of not noticing, the muscles are involuntary very often, right? We're just blinking. We don't even think about it. Of course, sometimes we blink on purpose, but the blinking that occurs is very often involuntary. We have involuntary muscles and voluntary muscles. Number 5. Yeah, our eyelids age like every other part of our body. That's why you see them very often as drooping, and certainly they feel heavier over time. Number 4, getting back to styes. They're common. Most people will get a sty at least once in their lifetime. And they're, like I've said in the entire podcast, they're usually harmless and heal in about, actually, I haven't mentioned this, they actually heal in about a week. Some cases 2 weeks, but hey, I've had 3 in the last 3 months and I never had one my entire life. And I'm old. Number 3, they can be internal or external, these styes. The external ones form at the follicle, right there where you can see them on the tip of your eyelash. But the internal styes are kind of like inside the eyelid, and they form deeper in the glands, and those are the ones that ultimately are more painful, which is the most recent one that I've had. Number 2, you see a sty and you have to know, what is it? It's a tiny battle. It's a war on your eyelid. It's bacteria against our body's immune system. The swelling, the redness, the pus, they're all signs that, yeah, you're winning the battle against the bacteria. And the number 1 thing you need to know about styes and our eyes, it's all about these little tiny oil glands that help keep our eye lubricated, help our tears from not evaporating so quickly. It's about this oil that's secreted that becomes thicker. And why is it becoming thicker? Why does that happen? There's no rhyme or reason why it's happening. Unfortunately, if your eyes are a little drier, the glands can overcompensate, making the oil substance a little bit more thicker and concentrated. It could be because you're getting older, right? The consistency of the oil is changing. It could just be of the environments like we've talked about, which is interesting because it's not just about irritants out there. In the bacteria, it's about the irritants that interact with the oil, which again can make it thicker. So, to wrap up our podcast, it's all about these oil glands with the oil becoming thicker, and now it's backed up, and here comes that bacteria that's all over the place, and it just finds this wonderful little home right there in that little opening where the eyelid hair comes out of our skin. Friends, thanks for being on this journey with me as we dived into styes. This has been the OK Let's Learn podcast. Reach out to me at kevmok21@gmail.com. Please rate and review my podcast on Apple Podcasts. Can always help. So until next time, have fun and keep learning.